All right, variables and functions. So we're going to first go over variables, and this is how you make them. They're a good way to organize your scripts and also save you a lot of time, and you'll see here, see what I mean here in a minute. So I'm going to create a part. I want to call it Pete because I can. And then we're going to go back to our script here, and I am going to change the transparency of the part, which basically makes it invisible and visible. As you can see here, 1 is completely invisible, 0 is visible, and you can choose any value in between those. So I'm going to reference the part here real quick, game.workspace.pete.transparency equals 1. So now it's going to turn invisible, but I want to turn visible, and I want to turn it invisible again. But there's a different way to do this, and it'll achieve the same exact result in a smaller amount of time. And that's by making a variable, and I'm going to call it turn Pete invis. And we're going to reference the part again, game.workspace.pete.transparency. Okay, so unlike this top part, let's separate this off and try again. But this time using a variable. Now I can just say turn Pete invis equals 1, turn Pete invis equals 0, turn Pete invis equals 1. See the difference? The bottom looks cleaner, it does the same thing, and it took me way less time. Sure, you could copy and paste these lines up here, but let's say you're dealing with 100, 200, 300 lines of code. It's going to start hurting your eyes looking at it because you have all these long lines going across the screen, or you can have these nice, neat little packages of code where I clearly know what this is going to do. It's going to turn Pete invisible. So make sure you name your variables, something that'll help you figure out what they do if you ever have to abandon a project and come back a couple months later, a couple days later. You know, make it make sense, even though you can name them whatever you want. Another thing about variables is they don't have to equal apart. They can equal true or false statements, like I'm going to do here. Make turn Pete invis equal true. Make it false. You can make it equal a number. You can make it equal a string. There's infinite possibilities. Just give it a name, assign it something. Just make sure the name will help you remember exactly what it's for. On to functions. I like to think of functions as a box of code that you're not going to use just yet, but you will use it in the future. And you might have to reuse it multiple times. So you make a function by typing in function, giving it a name. I'm going to call it add. You have to always have an opening and close parentheses, and once you hit enter, it's going to close it off with an end. So in this case, I want to print 1 plus 1. Oop. Make sure I have that parentheses down there. If I run this right now, nothing will show up in the output. But that's because I did not call the function. And you call a function by calling its name and adding the opening and closing parentheses. Now if I run this, it'll tell me to. Now let's say I wanted to print multiple numbers. Like, well, sure, I can add multiple prints in the function. I can make a complete other function called add2. And we'll do that here real quick. And just make it do 1 plus 3. And then down here, I can call both functions. And sure, I would get the result I want. But let's say I have to do multiple of these multiple times, you know, like 10, 20 times. It's going to stack up. It's going to take a lot of space in your script, and it's going to look pretty ugly. So you can actually do this same thing with one function by using the parameters, which is going to be anything you put inside of these parentheses right here. And you can think of parameters as unassigned variables. They have no value, but you will give them a value later on. In my case, I'm going to name my number 1 and number 2. Anytime you have more than one parameter, separate them with commas. If you forget to do it, Roblox Studio will tell you to do it. So, and then down here in the print, we're going to tell it to add number 1 and number 2. Now, if I just call add again, it's going to basically tell me you are trying to add basically nothing, which is exactly what this means here. So I have to assign number 1 and number 2 a value, right? I have to give it something to add, and I can't give it a string. I can't give it true or false statements. I can't give it part names, but I can give it number values. So that's what we're going to add. We're going to add 2 for the first argument, comma, and we're going to add 5. Now it's going to add 2 and 5 together to make 7. Because number 1 is equal to 2, number 2 is equal to 5. But let's say I needed to reuse this function. I can call it again. I can give it 2 completely different numbers. In this case, let's give it 9 and 6. We'll print 7 now and 15. Because in this first one, like I said, 2 is equal to number 1, 5 is equal to number 2. And the second time I call it, 9 is equal to number 1, 6 is equal to number 2. And there's a lot of times you can actually use functions. It's when you have to reuse code and you don't want to have to type, let's say, a 10 length piece of code over and over when you can just call the name of the function and achieve the same exact thing. And all you have to do is plug in different arguments when you call it. Now, one more thing before I end this video, we're going to go over local variables. So the last time I put in a variable, it was a global variable, which, let's just make Pete equals false. I can use Pete anywhere from line 1 to line 7. Anywhere I want. I can use it wherever, whenever. However, if I add a variable in a function, we're going to call this Peter equals true. You see it underlines red, but that's because inside of a function or even inside of a loop, you have to put local in front of it. Now, the difference between Pete and Peter is that with Pete, I can reference him up here without an issue, but I cannot see Peter. If I even go below the function, I do not see Peter. But if I go inside the function, I can now see both Pete and Peter. And that's the main difference. Local variables are basically stuck within whatever we made them within. Global variables are usable anywhere in the script. All right, that concludes this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you join the Discord if you haven't already. Hit the like and subscribe button so that way these videos can reach out to more people that would like to learn the script. And in the next video, I am going to be teaching the 3 different types of loops that you can use and basically how they work. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.